You ever wake up one morning thinking, today's going to be the day everything changes, but you have no idea just how right you are? That's exactly what happened to me the day my dream car became public enemy number one in the eyes of my HOA president, a woman who ran our quiet, supposedly elite, neighborhood like she was the warden of Alcatraz. You know, I'd worked my whole life for that car, a matte black McLaren, something I babied like it was my own flesh and blood. Never revved it late at night, never broke 20 within the gates, always polished, always legal. Still, turns out, some folks just see a little happiness and think it's their job to snuff it out. It all kicked off with this ridiculous note I found tucked under my wiper one Sunday. Big block letters, zero tact. Your car is a menace, it read. It's too fast, too flashy, and it threatens the harmony of this community. You have 2 weeks to remove it or face further action. Now, most folks might have gotten mad, but honestly, I laughed so hard I had to sit down on the curb. I even snapped a photo and dropped it into my ever-growing Neighborhood Crazies folder, figuring that'd be the end of it. I mean, I'd read those HOA rules front to back. Nowhere did it mention anything about what kind of car you could own. But if you've ever dealt with a real HOA tyrant, you know how these things go. They never stop at letters. Day 15, the exact deadline from her note. I step outside, coffee steaming in my hand, and just about choke. My McLaren looked like it had lost a bar fight with a grizzly bear. Windows smashed, tires slashed, paint stripped down to the metal, just total carnage. For a good minute, I just stood there, half expecting someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha." But no, it was real. That's when my neighbor Denise shuffled over, wide-eyed, glancing over her shoulder like she was about to spill government secrets. She whispers, "I saw Marcia, our dear HOA president, out here last night with the landscaper. Looked like they were arguing with your car." Let me back up a sec. Denise isn't the type to exaggerate. If anything, she avoids drama like it's contagious. But even she couldn't deny what she saw. I thanked her, tried to keep my cool. No yelling, no tears. Instead, I just grinned because, unbeknownst to Marcia, I'd installed a tiny security cam in my porch light after some package thefts last year. I walked inside, fired up the footage, and there she was, Marcia herself, still in her ridiculous floral housecoat, swinging a hammer at my car like she was trying out for America's Got Talent, Home Invasion Edition. The landscaper was there too, mostly watching in horror, probably wondering how he'd ended up as her sidekick. I called my lawyer before I called the cops. And boy, did Marcia step in at this time. She really believed she was on some crusade for community safety, but the only thing she protected was my right to a brand new car at her expense. The cops showed up, watched the footage, and just shook their heads. Not even gloves or a mask, one officer said, half laughing. This might be the dumbest case of vandalism I've seen. Denise, bless her, even gave a statement. For once, her fear of conflict finally bowed to basic decency. Naturally, Marcia doubled down. She claimed she'd done the neighborhood a favor, calling my car a missile on wheels and warning everyone it would tempt kids to play in the street. Her emails to the board were legendary, accusing me of being some kind of underground street racer, a danger to families. All that melodrama. I countered every point, highlighted the rules, printed out her emails, even brought in GPS and decibel logs showing the McLaren never once disturbed the peace. I mean, at some point, you've just got to let the facts drown out the noise. The civil suit was glorious. Marcia showed up with a battered clipboard, stacks of grainy printouts, and a scowl sharp enough to cut glass. She had no attorney, just righteous fury and the kind of misplaced confidence you only get from reading too many HOA newsletters. My lawyer, meanwhile, opened with a slideshow. First slide, a freeze frame of Marcia mid-swing, hammer high, the very picture of suburban rage. The courtroom went quiet, except for a couple folks in the gallery trying not to laugh. Then came the emails, her own words, printed on glossy paper for dramatic effect. She tried to say it was out of context. The judge just sighed. "Ma'am, this is your signature." Marcia tried to justify everything. "I was protecting the community. That car is a weapon." The judge leaned in, eyes tired. "So you destroyed it?" "I neutralized it," she said, dead serious. I could practically hear the court reporter's keyboard pause. And here's where the twist comes in, because the landscaper, Miguel, unexpectedly admitted to everything. He'd only agreed to help because Marcia promised him a raise, but seeing the damage, he felt guilty. His confession, plus the footage, plus Denise's statement, Marcia didn't stand a chance. The judge found her liable for the whole mess. The cost of replacing my car, legal fees, and an extra fine for harassment. The number was staggering, over $300,000 by the time it was done. I heard her husband resigned from the board. Rumor had it Marcia sold her white Range Rover. Miguel quit on the spot, and their poodle developed a nervous rash from all the shouting. But you know what the real kicker was? When my new McLaren arrived, identical matte black, but this time with fire-red brake calipers and thanks, Marcia, embroidered right into the headrests. A bit petty, maybe, but satisfaction? You couldn't measure it. 2 weeks after the verdict, I took a slow drive through the neighborhood at exactly 10 miles an hour, windows down, blasting the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme just loud enough to catch Marcia's ear as she stood watering her roses, face blank, garden hose limp. That image will never leave me. The next HOA meeting was a circus. Marcia tried to plead her case, saying she was a victim of a biased system and still talking about child safety. Nobody was buying it. Denise brought popcorn. The board voted to strip Marcia of her presidency. Someone even suggested banning her from future meetings for endangering the peaceful nature of the neighborhood. I finally felt safe enough to install a new security system, just in case Marcia ever got creative again. Now, she won't even look at my house when she walks her poodle, crossing the street like I'm Medusa behind the wheel. And yeah, I framed her original complaint letter right next to a screenshot of her mid-hammer swing. Some nights, I just sit in the garage, admiring the view. Car, camera still, court receipt, knowing I didn't just get justice for myself, but for anyone who's ever been bullied by someone drunk on a tiny bit of power. I reminded that whole neighborhood, no title, no matter how shiny, gives you the right to become judge, jury, and executioner over someone else's life. So, tell me, did Marcia get what she deserved, or did the punishment go too far? Would you have handled it differently? I want to hear your stories. Drop a comment, hit like, and let's talk about what justice really means when neighbors go to war.